So we're going to wait for the internet to catch up a little bit. And we are now live on all platforms. Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of the Level Up Your Wealth podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Marcus Howard, joined by Jen and Mario. Jen, definitely excited to speak with you. Mario, if you do a quick intro, we'll jump right in.
Yeah. What's going on, y'all? Hope all is well. Mario Payne, your certified financial planner in beautiful but rainy Jacksonville, Florida. And they say it doesn't rain in California. Jen, is that true?
It's very true. I don't know what rain is. No idea.
You just learned about it right now.
I did. Is this like rocks come from the sky? What happens? Oh, water. Okay,
The
yeah.
Hailstones, if you have that.
No, I'm from Texas, so I am well versed in thunderstorms.
Excellent. And thank you, everybody, for joining us live.
And tornadoes on that.
And tornadoes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Again, we're about to kick off a rock, paper, scissors tournament. Mario seems to be the reigning champ, but Jen has been in the gaming industry a long time. I'm sure she's going to give him a run for his money. In the chat, if you will let us know, who do you think is going to win, Jen or Mario? We'll pick one person who selects the winning reigning champion for tonight's game. They'll win a free digital copy of Mario's book and my book, Innovate Gaming and Esports, 5-star rated on Amazon. Happy to send you a copy of that. So without further ado, let us know in the chat who you think is going to win. Mario and Jen, if you'll get ready. Mario, if you'll share your screen. And Jen, try not to look at his screen as he's making his picks.
Okay, here we go. All right, and we'll start.
And if Jen, if you only have one screen, you can go first, and then Mario will go second.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Let's try that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, have a joke. Okay. All right.
Everyone else, this game is free to play. If you go to rps.gg, you can play. You can't play in this match, but you can play in your own matches. Shout out to Eugene, who was a guest on our podcast.
How many rounds do we go?
First to 10 points. Yes, thank you. The rules, first to 10 points.
It's a game of skill and will. Oh my gosh, I don't have to do it right now. Okay. Oh. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Oh my gosh. All right. So Jen, as you know, I'm a certified financial planner. So actually, believe it or not, rock, paper, scissors is a game that I actually use for my clients when we figure out their risk tolerance. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. So depending on like the trends, if you're like on a winning streak, on a losing streak, you picking either rock, scissors, or papers kind of gives us an idea, psychology wise, how you are if the market goes up. Like if the market's going up and you're aggressive, you're going to yes. Then you're going to continue to pick things probably closer to like a rock or like scissors because you're like, oh, keep it going. But if a person is more conservative, they're going to do more towards paper or a combination of scissors and paper because, paper is kind of more like conservative play compared to a rock or scissors that's more aggressive. Uh-oh. Okay.
Oh, you're coming back.
Coming back
Really?
Indeed. Oh, I spoke too soon.
I thought it was the psychology of trying to anticipate where the market moves. My wife is doing day trading right now. And so we are I'm learning by osmosis.
Okay.
And so she's doing puts and options and, we're learning a lot about, it's very difficult to talk and play this game at the same time and try to anticipate what you're,
I keep telling people that's why I could never be a professional streamer because I can only talk to people and I can't even do that very well. Or I can play video games and I can't do that very well either. So I can't do neither of those well at all.
Oh, that's crap. I almost had you.
So close.
Oh, bummer.
but you're a great sport about it. So MD Lockridge, he voted for Mario. So congratulations, MD. We'll send you a copy of both of the books.
Oh boy.
Thanks for being a great sport.
Am I going?
Of course.
So Jen, you've been working in the gaming industry for many years now, working with some of the biggest companies in the space. Can you talk a bit about how you got into gaming?
Yes. Mario, you're with us. He looks like he's got internet struggles with all the rain in Jacksonville, and a team that is kicking ass too.
I think I'm in a matrix right now.
Okay. Well, I'll vamp and get him some time. All right. So, hi everybody. My name's Jen Donahoe. I've been in the gaming industry a long time, but let me tell you a little bit about my journey. I started off in the toy industry, so you might see a big Power Ranger helmet behind me. I actually started my career. My very first job was making Star Wars action figures. And so I was at Hasbro and I worked on Transformers, G.I. Joe. Basically, if I could get a gold medal in something, it would be making action figures for 6-year-old boys. It's a very weird talent to have, but that's one of them. And so I made Power Rangers for 5 years when I was at Disney. So I worked at Hasbro, Disney, and Mattel across all those different types of properties. So I also did licensing at Disney as well. And I really wanted to get into the game industry. I love games growing up. My brother and I used to play. I had an Apple II Plus. I'm going to date myself and sound like a boomer, but I grew up playing Wizardry on the Apple II Plus, and then I obviously had Atari and Nintendo and Commodore 64, and so I've been playing games as a player for forever. Mm-hmm. And the game industry is very difficult to break into, which I think is probably a lot of what the audience struggles with. And so what happened was the toy industry was getting younger and younger and younger. It's very difficult. All the kids were going to play video games. And so I reached out to all of my friends and tried to network as much as I could to say, is anyone, open to giving me a shot? And what I lucked out, a friend of mine connected me to this guy, Chip, who was at EA, Electronic Arts. And luck would have it, they did a deal with Hasbro, who I just mentioned, to do video games for all of their brands. So Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, Nerf, Littlest Pet Shop, Boggle, all these different brands, Battleship that you may have known.
Power Rangers?
Which one?
Power Rangers?
So Power Rangers was not at Hasbro. Well, it is now. So at the time it was with Bandai, but good.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Good call on that one. So I had Power Rangers as a licensor, and I worked on the TV show, and so that was pretty cool to be a toy person, and then work on getting the TV show made as well. So I like to say part of my job was orbiting Hollywood because I worked on Mattel. I did Jurassic World. I worked on a ton of I did Batman versus Superman action figures, and so I did Suicide Squad. So I got to go to the set of Suicide Squad and meet Margot Robbie, and she walks up in her, in her face makeup as what's her face? As Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, yeah.
So I don't know. She's actually Australian. I don't know if Margot Robbie is Australian. And she's like, oh, hello. And I can't do an Australian accent to save my life, but could not be the most bubbly, lovely human. But she is dressed as Harley Quinn, who is a badass. And so it was just this weird juxtaposition. So sorry, total tangent. So back to how I got into gaming. So I got into EA and I worked on the Hasbro business. And so that started my career. I was there for, 5 or 6 years working on every single platform. That was the heyday of the Wii. It was the birth of mobile. I actually had to go to the Hasbro headquarters and say, hey, we really want to take Scrabble free on the App Store. And they literally said to me, are you effing kidding me? And we had to explain free to play to a licensor for the very first time and take one of the first licensed products free. So I've been doing this for a long time at EA. At Zynga, I was the marketing lead on the Farmville franchise. At where else have I been? At Scopely, I did all of the mid-core games for Scopely. So Walking Dead, WWE Champions, Looney Tunes, Star Trek, Monopoly Go version 1. Version 3 is the one that is out there and is $1 billion right now. And then the And then Riot. So I was on growth on League of Legends, and then launched Fight Tactics on mobile and set up the mobile publishing for all of Riot. And then High Def was a startup that I ended up, I left Riot to go work with Chip from EA. Because in the industry, when you're friends with people and you love them and they call you and they're like, let's make something, you do that. And the reason why I wanted to do that opportunity is one of the founders was Rick Fox. If you are an LA Laker fan or a fan of basketball, especially of that era during the Kobe, heyday era, who wouldn't want to had the opportunity to work with Rick Fox, who is a massive gamer, massive gamer. So we'll come back to Rick in a second, but just to finish out. And so after my startup might be, winding down a little bit. So I decided to do some consulting. And so now I work with lots of different game companies, including a company called Beta Hat, which we do market research, and we help game companies understand everything about their players and their concepts. So we work with literally every major game company out there. So I get to see a lot of everything in development, and I can't talk about any of it, but it's a lot of cool stuff coming. And then I do a podcast. So I do a little bit of this type of thing, but although we edit it, so being live is a struggle for me, I have to say. It's called,
You're doing well.
It's called Deconstructor of Fun. So please go sign up for the newsletter, listen to the podcast. I am on an episode called This Week in Games, where we talk about all of the news. So if you're interested in the news and what really senior folks in the industry care about, they all listen to this podcast. It's the largest game industry podcast. And then I do deep dive episodes, and maybe I'll have you guys on one and we'll deep dive into esports or something else. We try to do things that the inside baseball, right? Game industry people really know and what they care about. And I just talked for a really long time. Hopefully that was a good summary of everything.
No.
Yeah, Mario, you missed it. She has a helmet from Power Rangers on her desk behind her.
Oh, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
And that's like from the show. That is legit 1992.
Oh.
Kimberly wore that. On this side is my other helmet.
Oh, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
The Cowboys.
Because I'm from Texas.
So side note, but they had Power Rangers and they had the Praying Mantis, show as well. Whatever happened to that show?
That was called Masked Rider.
Yes. Yeah.
And so those are all shows developed in Japan. And what would happen is companies called Saban would bring them over to the US. They would keep all the helmet head footage, which is, when you're running it, you redub it, and then you film and you supplement it with all of the English speaking actors. And so for Power Rangers, we would take episodes from Toei, who is the Japanese creator of the show, and we would save about 8 minutes of an episode with helmet head footage of all the battles. And then we would develop storylines around it with English speaking folks. So Masked Rider was another one of those. It never did what Power Rangers did, which is the idea of 5 characters together, each one in a different role. It's like that quintessential team up kind of action figure thing.
Yeah. No, I love me some Power Rangers. So was Power Rangers as big of a hit in Japan as it was here in America, or was it just
absolutely
part of the show? Okay.
I mean, when I worked on it, I think I celebrated the 10th or the 15th anniversary, and that was 15 years ago. I think they're at 30 or 35. Actually, I think it's 30 because on Netflix, I think they just released a special.
Yes.
I need to watch it. And I saw that the actress that plays Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, she's coming to some sort of LA Comic-Con, or I think there's a Comic-Con coming up, and she's I was like, oh, maybe I should bring the helmet and have her sign it.
Yes.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Jason David Frank. He passed away last year.
Yeah. There's been a lot of tragedy with a lot of the past actors, and the hard thing is they make it in the news for the wrong reasons, when so much of it was for how many of us remember some of those episodes and how cheesy it was from when we were kids, right? It brought so much joy.
Yeah. So from a development standpoint, is the process the same between action-packed games and more of the different games? Because I know you developed a lot and helped develop a lot. Like, is it a difference, or the development phase is kind of the same?
I think that the general phase of making games is fairly similar, no matter what platform, no matter what genre. You know, you come up with a great idea, you make sure that your players want to make it, you develop a prototype, you start testing the prototype, then you go into production, and then you start building it. You test it some more to make sure players still like it, and then you market it. What the difference is how long it takes to do that.
Okay.
You know, obviously AAA games, you know, Baldur's Gate, I think took 7 years. I think, or at least 5. I think I heard 7. You know, so a lot of mobile games take 18 months to 2 years, smaller games. And so it's the time to market that's a little bit different. And Monopoly Go, you know, the $1 billion mobile game. Like I said, I worked on version 1 and they launched with version 3. It took 5 years to make that game.
Wow.
Because the thing is, you don't want to launch a game anymore unless you know it works for players and that it will retain players and make money with players. And so there's a lot of testing that goes along with games. You don't just, you're like, all right, let me just make something and put it out into the world. It kind of doesn't work that way anymore, or else you waste your time and effort. So you have to like methodically, you know, go about doing that. And so I play a game developer on TV. So that's why I can give you all of that. When you do marketing and you work so closely with developers, I joke and say I put a decoder ring on and I'm able to speak their language and speak marketer language and speak player language and kind of bring it all together. I'm a little bit of the conductor of the orchestra of, hey, how do we take this great game that, you know, developers love making and turn it into a language and help players really understand why they should love this experience. So if you ever wondered what marketing does, hopefully that helps explain it. Oh, and I make those trailers and all the pretty images you see and that stuff too.
Okay.
It's pretty cool that you worked on Farmville. One of our guests, you know, Marie Ablaza from, hopefully not mispronouncing her last name, from Netflix.
Oh,
Games.
yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so she just crows on and on about
Cozy game.
Cozy
Yeah.
game. Like Farmville was like one of the OG, and I would agree with her, one of the OG cozy games.
Yes, it absolutely was. It unlocked a market for 60-year-old women in Iowa. In all the best ways. It really, you know, Bejeweled was actually one of the first games. What PopCap did, or Big Fish Games with PC games back in the day, they realized that through matching games or hidden object or through farm simulation, that these are games that appeal to a new audience and a female audience. And what was so powerful about Farmville, or powerful about now what's on like mobile, the mobile industry is 50% of the entire game industry. Everyone thinks video games and you think about Spider-Man 2 or Baldur's Gate or all these, or esports or all these hardcore things. Half of all revenue comes from mobile. Wow. And most of those mobile games, okay, maybe 60% of those are played by women. And people don't realize the power of women in gaming. And so, like I mentioned my wife earlier, she has 3,000 hours in Animal Crossing on the Switch.
Sounds like my daughter.
Marie's a big fan of Animal Crossing as well.
Yep.
She helped us understand.
Yep. Cozy games are a thing. And, you know, one of my clients that we're talking about, you know, how cozy should it be? Can you have combat in cozy games? And I'm like, you kind of can't. Yeah. You kind of can't. That's not what they want to do. What you have to think, what marketers and product marketers do with game developers is we try to help them understand what is the core motivation of your player. And then you make games and features for that. So for Farmville, what we did a focus group. We brought in a bunch of 60-year-old women from Iowa. And we're like, why do you like playing this? What do you do? You know, why do you come back all the time? And they're like, I come to escape my life. There used to be something called Calgon Take Me Away. I'm a boomer. So very, very old commercial that was like about bubble bath that they used to market to women. And so it is the idea that a lot of older women have so much stress in their life. They want to get away from it and go into this farm that is pristine and beautiful and there's sunshine and all of the animals, no one dies, and there's no battling, but they can customize it and they can be, in a sense, you know, like God of their own environment, and the sense of power that they have, the sense of escape that they have. So once you realize that that's what a cozy game is, then you build features around that. And does battling fit into that? No, it does not. I also had to make a game for little girls called Littlest Pet Shop, which are these cute little adorable animals. I was working with a game studio in Salt Lake, and they had made The Godfather, they had made Tiger Woods Golf, and they were a bunch of dudes who actually had little girls, and they're like, yeah, the pets are going to go on missions, and they're going to like just fight other pets. And I'm like, no. And they're like, Jen, we don't believe you. Like, we know how to make games. I'm like, how about we talk to some 8-year-old little girls? And so we brought them all into a focus group, and they pitched their idea, and the little girls shit all over it. Hopefully they like literally were like, this is awful. And they came back and they said, we want nurturing, we want hair play, we want to, tie ribbons in their hair, we want to dress them up, we want to dress up their houses, everything that we just talked about, right? And so the developers were like, oh man. I'm like, go home and talk to your 8-year-old girls. And I don't know why you didn't do that to begin with, because they're used to making games for them and not making games for their audience. So if there's, when I go to USC and I do these lectures, or I talk to, young people or people that want to come up and make games, that I tell them the number one thing that you need to learn is that you need to make the game for the audience and not for you, unless you are the audience. And then then go for it. Yeah.
So when it comes to mobile, like what year did you see the shift of individuals want to develop more mobile games? Like what year was that?
Oh, geez. 10 between 2010 and I think 2012. 12 was like, I think the heyday of, Supercell really coming out and starting to do what Supercell does. And they're starting to be, really, really mass market adoption of these types of games. It was like right around there. So when I was at EA and I was working on mobile and we were doing the Scrabbles, and I did Tetris, I did Simpsons Tapped Out, I did World Series of Poker, Sims Free Play, all of these games were just at the beginning of that phase and the beginning of free to play and really becoming massive, massive businesses. So it's only been, isn't it crazy to think it's only been like a little over 10 years that mobile is now this juggernaut of an industry. And then the difference too is East versus West. So the way that people play mobile games in Eastern markets, China, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, are very different than the way that Western folks play mobile games, and the types of systems and the types of free-to-play monetization, the gotcha system or, loot boxes. There's a lot of people that are allergic to that in the West. And it comes from, a lot of people here grew up playing console. So a lot of people in the East grew up playing Cartwriter or more PC games that had a lot of these. The birth of free-to-play was in Korea with a game called Cartwriter in the late 90s. And that's what all of the folks here in the US saw that and then started to bring that over to create what happened on mobile. And so there's a great podcast that Mitch Lasky does called, I'm going to have to vamp until I find it, but it was like Game Makers. I think it's Game Makers. If you're interested in the history of the video game industry, it's like an 6-part series, something like that. Highly recommend it. I make no money off of referring this other than to say it's awesome. Super well done. And he's like my hero, this guy, Mitch, who the stories he tells, he was actually one of the investors in Riot's League of Legends, which is a whole other fun story.
Oh, he got paid then.
I'm pretty sure he is not hurting for money.
Yeah. So from a cost standpoint, is it also cheaper for a business to create a mobile game compared to a console, or is it still about the same?
It depends.
Okay.
Sorry, I hate answering like that. So some mobile games, like I worked on Wild Rift, which League of Legends Wild Rift, hundreds of millions of dollars to make the game, right? Because it is a massive, massive experience. Call of Duty Mobile, hundreds of millions of dollars likely to do that. You can make a game for like under $1 million. It's not going to compete with that, but that's what, I don't know if you remember like the Flappy Bird trend, or, there can be indie games or hyper casual or hyper casual games, which are like really simple games that are just there to deliver an ad to you and make money off of ads.
Okay.
Sure, you can make really cheap games like that. Consoles, you have, single A, you have indies, single A, double A, triple A, right? So there's a lot, you can do a lot on Steam. I think one of the games right now, I was just looking into this. Somebody mentioned this game called Lethal Company. I think it's made by a few people. It's like number 2 in the Steam charts right now.
Wow.
Yes, I heard it. It's a handful of people who make that
Right,
game.
handful of people. So Stumble Guys, a hugely popular game on mobile, was made by 6 people in a. I'm going to joke and say it's a cabin in Finland, but I'm kind of not joking. Scopely came and bought that game, and it is a massive, massive multi-million-dollar a year hit for Scopely.
Wow.
So, like, I think the thing to take away is if you're interested in making games, there's never been a more appropriate time and a better time for independent people to learn Unity, to learn Unreal, to go into Roblox, to go into UEFN, Unreal Engine for Fortnite, or Unreal Editor for Fortnite, or creator mode. Start making games.
Yeah.
Just like make a game and have fun doing it. And in our Deconstructor of Fun Slack channel, which if you're in the game industry, you can apply, you can be in the Slack channel. There is a guy who is a single creator who posted his experience about building 2 games with Fortnite Creator, and his whole history and how he made money and how he did it. I mean, so never before could this happen, because when I started in the game industry, you had to be a console developer. You had to like go to a big company and learn how to do it the old fashioned way. Now I'm mentoring, this one woman from Stanford. She's an engineer. She's making games for herself on Unity because she learned how to do it, because it's fun for her. It's just, it's like so inspiring. I wish I had talent. All I do is write decks and talk on podcasts. I don't actually do anything.
That is so interesting. So when you were helping develop, what was easier, like a smaller team where you had more control, or a larger team where you can just talk to the manager or the supervisor and kind of make things happen? Like what was kind of easier for you from that standpoint?
I mean, there's pros and cons for everything. The thing that I like to do, and what I recommend any company do, is have your marketing team and your game team sit together or sit virtually together on one team. Live service games are one team, one dream. Truly like sports. I'm a soccer player. I played in college, goalie, so I'm a little bit crazy, so forgive me. But that is the best possible situation. When you're at a bigger company, and I've been at many of them, I've been at Disney been at EA, all these big companies, and you've got all the layers, it's harder. You have to learn. It's like being on the show Big Brother or on Survivor. You have to learn politics. You got to learn how to navigate, the different personalities. You're on a smaller team, it's scrappier. You have to wear multiple hats. You have to do things yourself. You can't look over to someone and be like, hey, I need you to go do that. It's you. And so because I've had to do the startups, because I've done bigger companies, I think I like something in the middle for me personally, which is I like having people that I can tell what to do, but not too many people telling me what to do. I think is the right way to think about it. And then, Gamecraft. Mitch Lasky's podcast is called Gamecraft. I messed that up. So thanks for the correction. I was close.
Yeah. Now, the reason I asked, because of course, like, especially more of the millennials, everybody wants to be independent, do their own thing, but definitely from a person that's kind of been there, done that, seen the industry grow, it's good to hear that perspective that, those larger teams sometimes not a.
It's really, really smart to, if you're just starting off in the industry, to go out and find maybe a medium or a smaller size company, and get some experience. I repeat, do not apply to Riot or Activision or Blizzard or EA if you've never done anything in games. Don't do it. Please don't.
Jen, why do you think that it's so exclusive? So many barriers to entry for the non-gaming industry, when we as an industry rely on the people who don't work in games in order to make the industry successful. That seems
Yes.
Counterintuitive.
We are snobs. No. So let me, so I think many people know that the game industry, even though this is a record year, even though we have had the most wonderful games, 20, 25, 30 games above 90 Metacritic this year. Like it is truly a remarkable year for the games industry. However, I think we are at 11,000 plus layoffs this year.
Wow.
The industry, because of the economic environment, there's a consolidation going on in the industry. And by the way, this is normal. The amount of time we had free money with no low interest rates was abnormal, and it's now starting to correct itself. So unfortunately, capitalism is showing what it does best, which is eliminate a lot of smaller companies, have consolidation in the market. So with that becomes people vying for very few jobs. And so in order to get that job, you need to come in with a lot of experience, with having done things before. What have you done and proven yourself with? I love junior folks. I think junior folks come in with, they understand gaming and community and how to find things on social, like, you know, the whole marketing landscape has changed dramatically, where TikTok and social and Twitch and streaming is now went from like the fourth or the fifth way that people find out about games to, you know, number 2, maybe even number 1 for many games, which is thanks to, you know, folks like what you guys do. And I think that the younger crowd and the junior folks can help us realize that. However, the first thing we're going to say is, you know, look at your resume and see what you've done. And so I mentor folks at USC. I teach at some of the USC classes. And so all of them come up to me after the class and they're like, can you give me a job? Can you give me a job? And you know, obviously you can't do that. What I do think, there are so many smaller companies out there that are looking for help. If you're willing to say, hey, I can help you out, and be pro. So the 3 tips that I give people is be proactive. So go out to people, come with, you know, work that you have done, come with a portfolio, even if you just like fake it. Hey, I made some fake ads for you on TikTok, or here's a marketing plan that I would do for you, or here's like 3 feature ideas I think would make your game better. Whatever it is in your discipline. So be proactive, demonstrate your passion. So really talk about the game that and the company that you're going for. Do your homework. I feel like so many people don't do their homework anymore. I don't know what it is. Like, we are not going to freaking hand you a job. Like,
Right.
You have got to prove yourself. This is not a consolation trophy environment where all you but showing up gets you a trophy. Like this is not how it works. This is very old school of me, but I'm just kind of telling you how it's laid out. So, and the third thing I tell people, so we had proactivity, passion, is personality, is make sure that you are coming in and there's something about you that is really unique and differentiated, and that you are also going to be someone people want to work with. When you go to work, I will work with you longer than I will see my family at home. So you better be fun, you better be engaging, you better be positive, you better be inspiring, or else, you know, you will not set yourself apart. And this is a struggle for introverts. And so introverts, you have to figure out how you can bring that magic. Even though you are introverted, you got to figure out like what's your personality trait that you can bring on that. So there you go.
That's awesome. And I share some similar advice about trying to get into the industry, particularly with indie studios, because as I'm sure you know, Jen, like 75% of the industry games are made from independent game developers. And unfortunately, you know, many of them are bootstrapping, so they may not have the budget to support a full-time salary, but they may be able to do some project work or bring freelancers. And all of that is still legitimate, valuable experience and portfolio adding and networking opportunities. So I 100% agree with you about that.
Yeah, just do anything. You know, reach out to your favorite smaller game and be like, I am so inspired by your game. I would love to contribute. And the thing that I wish people would come with is, how can you add value? Why you?
Yeah.
What do you bring?
Right.
And so don't just ask, do you have any internships or whatever? Say, I have a specialty in this. I've been playing games in this genre for this long. I really think I could add value by doing X, Y, and Z. Like, you're just going to knock the hiring managers, back of like, oh, wow, because not many people do that anymore. Not many people go that extra mile to do a little bit of homework and share that. So, just some tips. So my story of how I got my dream job as my first job. I made Star Wars action figures right out of college. And so I went to Washington University in St. Louis, so a lovely school. And this is going to date myself, but the internet was just around, and our alumni directory was still a book. And hopefully you guys know what a book is. You open it up, and Marcus, I think I saw a book from you earlier, right, with paper. Yeah,
pages.
Yeah,
a front and a
like
back,
the books.
cover.
Exactly. And so I had to literally open the book, and I was like, okay, anyone that worked at a toy company, a video game company, or comic book company. I used to love comic books as well. And so I found this guy's name, and he worked at Hasbro, named Rick. And so I called him and I said, please, sir, would you talk to me? I'm really interested in doing what you do. Do you have a few minutes to give me advice on how I might end up where you are? And he said to me, someone was really nice to me and took my call when I was in your position. So I will take your call. All I ask is that later on in life, when somebody calls you, that you pay it forward and do the same thing. And I said, hell yes, absolutely. So we talked. It was, I was halfway through my senior year, and he was lovely, and he gave me a lot of advice, and we stayed in touch. And 3 months after I graduated, he called me and said, we had such a lovely chat. We have an internship on Star Wars Open. Are you interested? And I said, I will be there in 2 weeks. And I had to move to Cincinnati, Ohio.
That's where I'm from originally.
Well, there you go. Nice. So Kenner. It was originally called Kenner, and it became Hasbro. And so I lived in Hyde Park. I lived in Lakeside Park, Kentucky for 1 year, because over the river. Many people don't know that Kentucky is literally like right across the river from downtown Cincinnati. And so that proactivity, that like maintaining those relationships, is what got me my dream job. And I've got all kinds of like Star Wars toys, and there's the Star Wars poster. That's an original Star Wars poster over there that you can't see. It all came because I put myself out there and I tried, and I feel like I'm jealous of how easy it is for people with LinkedIn to reach out and find people. And a lot of people, and my other tip for everybody that I learned is, especially if you're like me and you're a bull in a china shop, just ask somebody to help you. Hey, can you help me with this? I'm really interested in blah, blah, blah. And I really think you could provide me the help that I need. Not many people are going to say, yeah, no, I don't want to help you, right? Like, it's that simple phrasing can help really bring people to you. And it's not being vulnerable, but you maybe a little bit. It does kind of move the needle. And I use this at work all the time. In marketing, we don't often do work. We have to ask other people to help us with things. If I need an art asset, if I need the game team to give me an asset, there's very little that I create myself. And so I'm always having to ask help from other people. So just remember that phrase. It's a Yoda phrase. I give Yoda isms. Can you help me with this? Is a phrase you should write down and remember and use. And I promise you it will reap benefits.
So we actually have a question from Sarab. So I said, Jen, what are your thoughts on candidates trying to break into the gaming from a tech consulting background?
It depends. So the other thing I recommend to folks is what you need to go to LinkedIn and do, or go to job websites. So I don't know if you guys have ever talked to Amir Satvat, who, Amir is the saint. He is the saint of the game industry. So if he's going to go get like a ton of likes and follows. On his website, he has all of this information. He's got game directories on how do you reach out to different things. And so what you have to do is go to some of those companies and look up job descriptions and figure out what makes sense for you. What is the title of that job? What are all of the parts and pieces of that job, and then you tailor your resume to those jobs. Obviously, you're not going to lie. It needs to be what you know how to do, but you start to use the words. You start to see what is important and the priority, and make sure when you're doing your resume, obviously you're using action words, and you're doing a little bit of the STAR format that Amazon makes famous, which you want to make sure that you are talking about what it is that you did and what was the outcome. Use numbers where possible. So if you're a tech consultant, hey, you have a 98% satisfaction rate in helping clients do this, this, and this. I'm making it up. I don't know enough about this, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
But that's the homework, again, that you have to do. And then what you can do is, as you look and you find some of these, so you found the job description, you found the job title, you found some companies, then you go through your network and you find anybody who works at those companies or has a secondary link to somebody at that company, and you say, can you help me with this? I'm really looking to break in the industry. Here is a paragraph about me. Here is my resume. Here is the link to the job description. Would you mind referring me or asking someone to refer me? And give that person all the information. Don't make them do anything for you other than go and put you in the referral system. Many times people make money from referrals. Many companies have a referral bonus. But it's also like the mafia. And if we vouch for you, you better not F it up, because I'm putting my reputation on the line by referring you. And so it's very difficult. And this is why it's difficult to break into the industry is, it's difficult to have people want to put themselves on the line. So typically what I do, if I don't know you, I'll still send it along and say, I don't have a personal relationship. However, this and this looks interesting about them. But you need to give me the paragraph, your resume, the job link, and make it very easy for me. So hopefully that's helpful. Is it?
Yeah. I have another question. So ChatGPT, right? So how do you see that hurting or helping gaming going forward?
Right now, I think people are still playing around with it. So you have generative AI in terms of text and speak, and also in terms of images. I think there are a lot of pros and cons camps on these types of things. I think we need to look at it as, how can you help enable teams and not how it replaces teams. I don't think it's going to replace the creativity. I look at it as a tool, as a calculator, or as a way to do things more efficiently, especially for smaller companies who don't have the budgets. I know, especially in China, they are really, really digging into using it, and especially on the art side of things. Not as much on ChatGPT and code writing, but I think there's still a lot of exploring to come. So I believe that if you absolutely have to know how to use these services. I have Midjourney, I have ChatGPT, or different versions of these types of services. If you are not playing with them, you are going to get left behind. So you've got to be on, you've got to be checking out with Gemini, the thing that Google just talked about. You have to. I don't know if I'll try Grok on Twitter, but X or whatever it's called. I can't keep track.
Yeah.
But everyone's got their own thing. But please be playing with it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's more of a helper than an eliminator. I don't see a world where we're going to be taken over by robots. I mean, now robots are taking jobs, sadly, but I don't think it's going to be the end all be all. So to your point, I think it's going to help, but I don't think it's going to eliminate.
I don't know if you've seen Boston Dynamics, so you might want to.
I know, yeah. That one. It's funny. I don't know if you guys saw the social media clip, but they had so Tesla has robots, and so when they revealed the Cybertruck, they basically had a Tesla robots fighting against each other, and one person pulled up in the Cybertruck, and then he started the robot started shooting at the Cybertruck, and the person got out and they would start fighting. It was pretty cool, but it's these are robots, these are killing machines. What are we doing?
Yeah. Tesla's got an AI, well, Elon's thinking about splitting out AI separately, because he's right now running it Gronk. I forgot which one it is. I can't keep track of all these AIs coming out, or the LLMs basically is what they are. But yeah, I think that, the Cybertruck is perhaps the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But I'm also not a 35-year-old or 50-year-old dude who's probably the target audience of what that is.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of ugly.
You
Now,
started-
I'm biased. I have a Tesla. I have the Model X, so yeah, I'm kind of biased. I don't have a Cybertruck though.
I have an electric car. I've had an electric car for 6 years. I have a BMW i3.
Okay.
But they're discontinuing it, so I have to transition to the BMW i4 is my next one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about the ultimate driving experience. I'm a marketer, and I fall into the trap of BMW branding,
Yeah.
and Tesla's not my jam.
Okay.
We got a new question in here from, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Aya. It says, hi, Jen, do you think there will be more initiatives being launched to market to more women gamers? I'll put that on the screen.
Yes. I mean, there's so many today. So many games out there. If you're on social media, you probably are inundated with the fashion games or the puzzle games. I mean, the entire puzzle industry, the Candy Crushes of the world. Candy Crush is a multi-billion-dollar annual business, is 60-70% women. Now, I think what happens is a lot of like the stuff we see on TV or the really big profile games are more traditional, slightly more male leaning games, and in the shooting category or action RPG or things like that. But I think this cozy game genre that we just talked about is mostly women. Animal Crossings, most of Nintendo is very, very gender neutral. Mario Wonder is very very gender neutral. A lot of their advertising now features women or generational play, which is Lego Fortnite. I did a whole thing on the podcast that launched today around a generational play, which is families, parents, and kids playing together, which is something that we did with the Hasbro business. When we had the Wii, we used to play family game night, which is Connect 4 and Battleship and Boggle and Monopoly. You used to gather around the table and play those games together and have those family experiences with casual games. And there's so many of those products still out there and still available. They're just, the marketing for them is not as visible, and not as much money is spent as and plus, so Q4, so this time of year is all about the big console games because they're holiday gifts, right? So this time of year is the most expensive time to market your games. And most people pull back and let the Call of Duties and the other big games suck up all of this time. And then come January, you're going to see all kinds of mobile game activity because it's cheaper to market. People just got all their new phones and they want to download the next game and play. So January is the joke is like Q5 is like the new window for everyone else that's not a AAA game.
I'm gonna be playing. I call it Fortnite Minecraft Edition.
Yes.
Tomorrow, the new Lego game.
Yes, it is going after both Minecraft and Roblox with an amazing experience. And I do this whole like spiel on the podcast too about, imagine, if you will, one day you go in and you really like Batman. And you go into Fortnite and you get the Fortnite skin and you press a button, and next thing you know, you have Lego Batman. You've got the Batmobile in the rocket racing game or in the racing. I forgot the name of it. You got the 60s Batman theme song in Fortnite Festival, and maybe an Adam West like 60s Batman. But you're about to like be able to engage with your favorite licenses in a mini metaverse across all of these different ecosystems within the Fortnite walled garden. So I call it a mini metaverse because it doesn't leave the Fortnite ecosystem, but within there, imagine the fun that you're about to have. I tell everyone who has a 10-year-old kid, because if they turn 12, then they think you're a boomer and you're an idiot and they don't want to be with you. But if they're still 10, they'll still want to play with you. So I'm glad you're going to have like that experience because it looks amazing. It looks super fun. And I think this is going to be such a huge hit going into 24 that it might even overtake. It is right now. Lego Fortnite is overtaken Battle Royale Fortnite as a world.
Yeah.
We'll see if that may continue, and let's keep an eye on how Minecraft's doing. To your point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had another question from Aya. She said, "Thank you. I was asking since I was curious to know about the opportunities on both the audience end and the development side of gaming for women."
Yeah. So on the development side, I wish I had better news. 75% of the game industry is men, so only 25% of the game industry is women and non-binary combined, and so we are an absolute minority. And then you also get into other underrepresented groups. Blacks in gaming is about 4%. Latins in gaming is like 2%. I try to keep an eye on all of these. It's a little bit of a personal mission of mine to raise the voices of underrepresented people and that make games and also play games, to really make sure that we have more inclusivity in the way that we think about games, because having more inclusive people on our team and more people that represent different views only serves to make a better product, which only serves to actually make more money.
Yeah.
So it's a smart thing to have different voices on your team. And if anything, somebody can raise something that helps you think of something differently. So there are a lot of groups, Women in Games International, Women in Games, Girls Who Code. There are a lot of groups focused on helping to raise the voices of women in games in particular. So check out a lot of those groups. They have a lot of resources. One is called Wiggy. So if you look up WIGI, Joni is the woman who runs that, and she does a lot of resources for how do you break into the game industry as a woman, and what do you do when you have microaggressions at work or have the unfortunate things that happen sometimes, sexism that happens. That's a whole other podcast and a ball of wax, but hopefully that helps a little bit with where to go to get some of the resources there.
Jen, we're 3 for 3. You've mentioned Amir, and I mentioned Marie and Joni were all guests on our podcast this season. Yeah. So it looks like we're doing something right.
You're hitting. I mean, listen, you guys are top voices and top LinkedIn voices. Well, Marcus, they're doing a good job.
Marcus, not me, but Marcus.
Yeah. So sorry. I don't want to. I aspire to do that. Bill Young. So Bill Young is somebody, if you can, he heads up Twitch. So sometimes it's difficult for him to do public speaking. I think one of the challenges, having been at the bigger companies, is you're not really allowed to speak unless you're a spokesperson. And there's media training that goes along with that. And so, depending on what the topic is, reach out to him. If you need help, let me know. He's a friend.
Right. Thanks. And Mario is certainly a legend in his own right. He runs one of the number one leading financial services, Black-owned financial services firms in the country. So he's certainly a top voice himself.
Lucky me. Lucky me.
And hey, what you do is so smart. I think there are so many people that the best thing I ever did for my little brother was hand him a book. I think it was like. It was a financial planning book when he was like 25, and no one teaches you this stuff in school. I went to college and they still don't teach you this stuff in school. Like, why do we not do? I don't understand. Like, they don't I actually heard today that they're not teaching kids how to mail letters anymore or how to put a stamp on an envelope. Wow. Like, a friend of mine encountered someone who was like in their 20s. And he's like, "Oh, can you go mail that?" And they're like, "What? I don't know how to do that."
Wow.
Yeah. Like, I know they already don't teach cursive, but I sound really old. I'm shaking my stick. Oh, those young kids don't know how to mail things. But what you do is so important, and you can't retire. You can't do anything if you aren't getting the benefit of compound interest. I'm sure you preach the benefit of compound interest.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen if you don't do it now.
Yeah, true. The younger, the better. And we have another question. Don't know the name, LinkedIn user. So, hi, Jen. What advice would you have for a company that has helped people at big tech companies, but also wants to consult / do research for game companies?
Ooh, so I guess I'll tell you a little bit more about my transition. I was terrified. I had only ever worked for the man, right? Like we call, working for the big companies. I had only worked on certain projects with certain teams. And when I made the leap, what I decided to do, well, number one is I had to do a lot of work on figuring out how do you set up your own company because I never had to. Like, should I have an LLC? Should I have an S corp? Should I, all of these things? And luckily, I'm sure Mario knows there are a lot of resources that can help you do that now. So I went to Zen Business is the thing I went to. There's legal, there are some like templates you can do where you can go to a human and say, hey, help me with this. I happened to just go to like online resources first just to figure out what that was like, how to set up my own company bank accounts. It wasn't as hard as I thought. And I was really overwhelmed, but it actually wasn't as hard as I thought. So the harder piece is to all of these years I had marketed Power Rangers or games or whatever it was. Now I have to market myself. And when you have to market yourself, you stare at a blank piece of paper and you have never had writer's block like I have when I'm like, how do I talk about what I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It really threw me for a loop. And so I went and talked to all of my friends and I'm like, can you help me with something? Can you what do you think I offer? Like, what's the magic? What are my superpowers? And I just asked them, all these people I had worked with, and they kind of played it back to me. Jen, you are a product marketing rock star. No one is better at helping game teams figure out how to make the right game for the right player. You're data driven, you're data informed, but you have the right gut. You're fun to work with. And I was like, oh, wow, I knew it, but I didn't know it. And so having that mirror kind of play back to me was a way for me to figure out like, what is my personal brand and what's my one pager and what are the services that I can really own and offer that are differentiated from other kind of people out there, right? Because I've set up publishing organizations. I was doing this deck and I was like, I can do everything. I can tell you how to like create your community. I can tell you how to do UA, I've led entire teams across player support, all of this stuff. And what I decided to do was like talk about those things, but you got to go in with something very specific, solve a specific problem for it's kind of that value thing I talked to you earlier about is like, what is the value you're going to bring? And so now I go in and very specifically, I found a partner and we do this together. And so now I have a partner who can do the research, who can come in with the surveys, and I come in with the marketing side. And it's the Wonder Twins Power Activate, where together 1 + 1 = 3, where we're better together. So the other thing that I did was really focus on content marketing, and so I amped up my LinkedIn posting. I started to, but very specifically and strategically. I sought out the Deconstructor of Fun podcast. I interviewed, I was like, can I try out? And luckily they had an opening and I tried out and I got on the podcast, which, luckily this podcast is like one of, if not the leading game industry podcast. And overnight I have become mildly game industry famous because I go on with, 3 or 4 other people and we make fun of stuff in the game industry, but we give actionable news, we give the news, we give our takes from our disciplines, but we also do it in a very entertaining way. It's not like sitting in a college, lecture and being like, oh, I'm so bored. The information is good, but I want to stab my eyes out because I'm bored out of my mind. So we try to make it entertaining. And so we're colorful and hopefully my personality authentically matches that. And that's the other thing is as you do your content marketing or as you figure out if you want to do a podcast, how are you going to get in front of people? But be you. You have to be you. You can't fake it. People will pick up on that. So those are a few things. I'm sure I missed something. What about you guys? I mean, you guys do some of this consulting stuff too.
Yeah, the same. I was going to use the metaphor vertical slice for those of you who work in the game industry, but yeah, just that one piece of it that is something that I think I'm uniquely capable of delivering, and then reinforcing that from the content perspective. And when I do my content marketing, I'm always thinking about either being informative or entertaining, and hopefully a combination of both. And I'm always trying to deliver value as much as possible, right, without like cannibalizing the value that I want to pay my rent with, right? Which is a balance, but
Yes.
yeah, 100% that.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say, first off, adding value to your point. Like if you're value add, you're always going to be wanted and needed by a person. And then number two, I would say relationships. Like I would say all of the scaling I've done, all of this businesses I've been able to be a part of, has all been based on relationships. So I don't even know how many like friendships I have now. It's all like just relationships, and those relationships turn into friendships, and then like, from those they turn to other relationships. So definitely the more people that you can talk to, network with, and build relationships, I think that'll allow you to grow and scale quicker.
Can you talk a little bit about the shift you made, or how you made it to be a part of the high def team? I know that you do fractional CMO, and we hadn't covered that, and it was ironic that we had that most recent question, because I was going to ask you about making that shift from working full time at Riot to having your own company. You covered that masterfully, but if you would just talk about kind of that shift from being both an entrepreneur / consultant to also being part of a startup team.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the high def story was, we were, I mean, I'll bum you out for a second, this was going to be awesome. We had a great idea for a game. It was zero interest. Everything was awesome. We're making the game. We do a deal with Snap. We publicly announced it, so I can talk about it. It was going to be multi-year. We were going to build out these amazing games that were going to, in a sense, be off platform. It was going to be a new opportunity for them. The Ukraine war hit, the economy tanked, and Snap canceled their entire games business. It's all gone. All of it's gone. And so with that went, the major opportunity for our company. And so as we have been, and high def is still around, and we're still pivoting to try to find our next thing. In order to save money, I went to be a consultant. And so I still work with high def, and I'm in a sense, a fractional CMO. And fractional CMO is a really, really fancy way of saying consultant. Is that you, from a leadership position, you still come in, but you're only part-time. And the benefit of fractional work or consulting work is that you can go into a company, you can still play a major role, but they don't have to pay you as much because you're not spending as much time. It's a fraction of my time. And so I work with a number of different companies in this capacity who get the value of my experience and insight and strategy and consulting, but at a reduced cost. And what it allows me to do is also work with many different companies and do lots of different things and see what sparks joy for me in many different opportunities. So that's the way that I'm working with high def right now. And we have games, and we're looking for publishers, and we have a great licensed opportunity that we're working on. And I think the part that was really interesting, and let me talk about Rick Fox. I know you wanted to hear a little bit more. So first of all, one of the nicest humans on the planet, and one of the best smiles I've ever seen. I in my interview, I'm like, so I grew up. I was a big, actually, I don't know why, a Boston Celtics fan, and so like I was in the era of like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And do you remember playing the Larry Bird Magic Johnson like one-on-one game? And so I start talking, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bond with Rick. I'm an athlete, so I can play that up. And so I mentioned the Celtics, and he's like, oh, let me tell you this story, because he was a Celtic, right? And he's like, and I said, yeah, like Danny Ainge was like the small white guy was like amazing, and he was like my hero, and he's like, let me tell you this story. And when I left, I gave my number to Danny Ainge or something like this. I don't remember the exact story, but he was so warm and so engaging and inviting and putting you at ease. And the amount of entrepreneurial magic with him, like he actually owns, and his new passion is creating housing he's from the Bahamas, and his new company is a low cost, energy efficient solution for concrete that is going to allow them to rebuild a lot of the Bahamas coming out of many of the hurricanes that they had over the last couple of years. Wow. And so, yeah, if you go to his LinkedIn page and just like support him on that, because it's truly like he truly leads with his heart. Like, I don't think I've seen a a guy with a bigger heart. We had a team meeting where we all got together and we were like doing our strategy. And one of the things that we were doing was bonding with each other and telling a story about ourselves. And so I told a coming out story and how difficult it was for me to kind of do that. And, I, at this point in time, it's been so long, I don't, it's not that big of a deal to talk about that type of stuff. And so everyone was telling these really heart-wrenching stories. And he talks about Kobe, and he and Kobe were best friends. And we're literally all bawling in this meeting. And you're like, oh my God, he is opening up to us about, these things that were very personal and these experiences. And so I think when you have a group of people that are able to go through, and athletes do this, you kind of feel like you go through war together. Like you feel like you have been through a battle. And that's what allows you to bond and gel and then feel like you can go and tackle just anything. I take away a lot of that from my time with Rick and just how passionate he was about, winning at game making, understanding the value of what games can bring, lifting underrepresented voices. Like all four of our founders were, they're either Black or half Black, and they talk about that being so important. And then they were, they wanted me because I was a woman and I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and they love the fact that our company had such diversity to it. And that's one of the things that I'm still like super proud of, was really going out there and pushing that idea of, we talked about earlier, that inclusivity and having a breadth of people on your team is good for business.
Yeah.
It's not just like, DEI BS talking. It's like, no, like literally it's good for business.
Yeah. So
I've never heard that.
Yeah. As a fractional CMO, that has to be good though, because you're able to talk to so many people, seeing so many games created, kind of being different genres of gaming. So kind of talk about that experience from full-time to now kind of fractional with different companies.
Yeah, no, it's so fun. And so one of my clients is making a turn-based tactics strategy game on PC that's a hybrid with CCG. And I'm like, yeah, let's get into it. It kind of brings back my TFT days, Teamfight Tactics. One of my other clients is making a merge game for women and trying to innovate and come up with ways that merge can be interesting on mobile. And so my brain is like, okay, all right, okay. Audiences are completely different. Genres are completely different.
Yeah.
And then I'm working with a ton of other companies that are coming up on their journey. Like, hey, we need help with our concept. What's the best way for us to figure out our concept? Or, hey, we need to get better at measuring ROI. What are attribution models and ways that we can? I mean, all of these are my different kind of projects that I'm going through right now. And it's a joy to be able to work with so many different kinds of people at different stages of their journey and help people that, might not normally have someone with my experience. And it feels weird saying that because, I talk to a lot of my friends and I give free advice way too much because I don't know how to not shut up and do. I actually had to ask a friend, I'm like, how do I not give away everything in the first meeting? Because the problem is at a company, you were there to solve problems. You were there to make it happen. And so I go into these consulting meetings and I'm like, oh no, they don't need to hire me now because I just solved their problem on the phone. How do I not do that? And so actually, I called a friend who worked at an agency because I'm like, you must encounter this. What do you do? And she's like, Jen, it's very simple. You give them an example of how you solved somebody else's problem. I'm like, oh, that's like so you take something similar and say, oh, well, what we did at on Teamfight Tactics was XYZ, and then we did this and we did this. And then that way you're showing them that you know how to solve the problem, but you are not solving their particular problem. Like, oh, how did I not think of it? So this is part of the struggle, again, of transitioning to this idea of like a fractional executive, a fractional CMO, or a strategic marketing consultant, whatever you want to call these types of things, is thinking about how you approach work in a very different way, and thinking about how you have to sell yourself and how you have to really help people understand when you give them a proposal that they're going to see value and ROI from this. And maybe you start small and you crawl, walk, run, and you're like, okay, well, why don't we do this and have them see value and then trust you, and then you can build out the rest of the relationship. And then, yeah, a lot of it just comes from, it's so funny. One of the turn-based tactics strategy game, it's a company called Reblink. We're making a game. It's going to be called Arbo Arena Tactics. And he found me through my LinkedIn content. And so this week I referred somebody to him. And in the email, the person I referred was a listener to the Deconstructor of Fun podcast. And she was slightly fangirling over what I had said in the recent podcast. And he's like, because he's never listened to the podcast. He's like, so are you like game industry famous or something? Like she's like fangirling over you. And I'm like, yeah. And so it kind of dawned on him. He's like, oh my God, we're getting somebody with your level of experience helping us in our little baby game.
Right.
We should never have access to you. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I got a call from XYZ other major game company, and I have to, turn some of these people away because I'm working with you right now. Yeah. And so he was like, oh, Jen's working with us. And it feels really good to be able to do these things. And sometimes I think we feel like, we're a lawyer, right? If you ever call a lawyer and you get off the phone 15 minutes later and they're like, that would be $800. Like, I feel like that should be us. Like the wealth of knowledge on this call that we just gave away for free is amazing. But you also think, oh, maybe this is a hook to get somebody in. I'm not always thinking of pipeline. I'm not always thinking of growing my business.
Yeah.
Some of it has to be, in a sense, pro bono, right? Like I want to help the next generation of game makers, especially if you're from an underrepresented group, because we need more of you. And so I love that you guys take the time to do these types of things for that reason. Yes, we all hold up our books or we talk a little bit about what we do, but ultimately, I think the power of the positivity coming from what you guys do is just so inspiring. So thank you for doing it. It's just amazing to be a part of this.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We did have one more question come in from Michelle. I'm going to share this so that everyone.
Oh, Michelle. Yes, I know Michelle. She's
what's your advice on taking lower paid work to build a portfolio / client base versus holding to your value?
Yeah, well, Michelle is another person who is a seasoned professional who has such an inspiring breath. Like if you want to also meet, you should probably talk to her, especially because of esports. You should call Michelle next and talk to her with her history. But I think one of the challenges is, and the pieces of advice I got early on, especially if you are a badass, in which she is to don't lower your rate. Is to find the right fit and say no to people early on. Even if you might struggle a little bit. Hopefully everyone has like a little bit of a cushion. You want to make sure you have a cushion to say no, so that you wait for the right opportunity and you don't devalue yourself. You can offer a discount if if you like extend the engagement and say, hey, my rate is this. And actually I had to do this in some of my negotiations, and they're trying to negotiate with me and they're like, oh, can we do this? And I'm like, I appreciate, and I'm really excited to work with you. This is my rate. And this is my rate. And that's all you have to say, is because you earned it. Especially if you're seasoned and you have the experience to be able to say something like that. However, what you could say is, if you would like to, do a contract for a 3-month engagement, I'm excited to offer you a 10% discount. Something like that. So that's the advice that I got, and that's the advice that I used. And I'm really glad that I did, because a few weeks later, I was having to say no to people because I was so overwhelmed and so freaked out in the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, I have to just take anything that comes my way. How am I going to like live? How am I going to eat? And all of my friends were laughing at me. 3 months later, I'm like, I'm so busy. I'm booked. Literally a month in, I was fully booked.
Wow.
And people were like, of course you were. You've been engaged. Look at your resume.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I didn't think anyone would want to work with me. And I didn't, because I like to think I have a little bit of good karma. So have good karma, be good to people. And then when you go out into the world, people are going to be like, oh my God, I can finally be able to work with someone like this, with this caliber of person. So there you go. Thank you, Michelle. Badass.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's connect.
Actually,
If Jen says that I should meet with you, definitely want to have a chat.
Yeah, I interviewed her. I don't know why I was on the interview thread. You at Riot, you interview many people, and so I was the person to interview her, and that's actually how we became friends, because I was so impressed with her in the interview. I'm like, can we just be friends and talk, because you're literally a badass.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jen. Before we go, this has been amazing. You've shared so many insights and gems. How can people support you, follow you, connect with you, maybe do some work with you if you still have some bandwidth on your plate, or at least connect with you so that opportunity presents itself in the future?
Oh, definitely. So LinkedIn is best. I think you can Jen or Jennifer Donahoe on LinkedIn. If you are interested in, you have something great to offer and you want to be on a podcast on Deconstructor of Fun, I do deep dives. So just help me understand what type of topic you would want to do and how we could do fun. Like I offer it to you guys as well. That would be so fun to pay it forward and give it back and do different topics there. Yeah. So LinkedIn's perfect. Yeah. It's like the best possible way.
Excellent. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the importance of diversity and inclusion. Not that it's just the right, it's the right thing to do, but it's also a very lucrative business strategy, right? You want to maximize the total percentage of people in the world who play video games who might want to engage with your game, either with their time and or their money. But the other thing is that I'm sure you recognize, and I'm sure Mario and many others watching will agree, that games can be therapy, right? Either to help relieve stress from life, or help us find balance in other ways. And it's unfortunate that some of that is destroyed by the toxicity that exists in gaming, both in the game and also unfortunately in games workplaces. So I want to invite both of you and anyone who's listening to join me on Discord tomorrow. I've helped launch a campaign called Shine a Light on Gaming, where we're attacking the toxicity and the hatred and the bigotry in gaming to make it more inclusive for all marginalized communities. And we'll be playing at the cozy game we just mentioned, Fortnite Minecraft edition, the Lego adventure.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm going to post this link in the chat. That kicks off at 9:00 EST tomorrow. So the same time tomorrow that we started this podcast. We can have, I think, 8 people in our squad. There are going to be 3 or 4 of us, some streamers who have joined on. You all are welcome to join us as well. So check the chat for that. I'm posting that now. And that's all I have for this week. Mario, please let everybody know, how they can support you. And then after that, Jen, please select someone that you think is deserving of getting a free copy of our books.
Well, how to support me is going to the Discord tomorrow at 9:00 and support Marcus. That's the first way to do it. But then also as well, you go hit me up on Instagram at Payneful Profits. Profits can be painful. Right now, we got the market's going up, man. We had our best month in almost 19 months last month. So good for the market. So definitely here to help. So at Payneful Profits on Instagram, that's the best way to hit me.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, before we leave, Jen, who should we send copies of our books to? If you don't.
So many. Thank you for so many great questions. But let's go with another woman, and at least I would think that she's a woman per all her questions. So let's go with Aya.
Aya, okay. Well, congratulations, Aya. We'll be sure to follow up after the show and send you again digital copies of the book for free. Mario, I don't know if we had talked about this, and I guess maybe this was an offline conversation, but does that end season 2 of the podcast? Do we want to do another show between here and the end of the year, or should they be checking with us in January?
It's up to you. You're the busy one. We could probably do next Thursday. We could do one more. I will have my Santa Claus hat on, my Rudolph, maybe. So.
All right. So, Jen, you're welcome to join us, and we'll have our guests lined up here in the next couple of days. But thank you all for joining us. To help you level up your wealth. We'll see you again next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.